In spirituality, it's important to be able to communicate with spirit, but it's also important to decipher whether you are hearing your own voice or spirit's voice, whoever the spirit or spirits may be that you connect with. But most of all, it's important to know when you hear a voice that's none of the above. It's not a spirit guide or even just you talking to yourself. You want to know when the voice you are hearing is not for you, putting you in harm's way, or just simply planting thoughts in your head that are demonic. Who else could that voice be besides the devil? Being able to differentiate whether you are talking to yourself, communicating with your higher power, or in this case, a lower power, is important. You want to make sure that you are paying attention to all of the thoughts that come. Sometimes it's our own thoughts that pop up in our heads that may not be nice, degrading, or remind us of a dark time. It's important to share these thoughts with someone you can trust. And thankfully, for moments like this, we have companies like BetterHelp, who is the sponsor of today's video. I have been a client of BetterHelp for a couple years now, and to this day, I have not ran out of things to talk about. As a very reserved person, I'm very selective with whom I share my business with. I'm cautious of people wishing bad on me in secrecy, out of jealousy, or using the information against me. However, my therapist at BetterHelp knows everything. I actually look forward to my upcoming session so I can just let it all out and have a trusted professional help me make sense of it all so I can think a little clearer and not have my thoughts all jumbled up like Arnie in this story. As a person who has beliefs and practices that are often scrutinized and misunderstood, it is a relief to have a therapist from BetterHelp who gives unbiased advice and takes time to understand my feelings and perspectives. I don't feel like I have to be selective with the information I share due to fear of being judged, because my therapist creates an atmosphere where I feel comfortable to genuinely express myself. Thanks to BetterHelp, we all now have access to a safe environment to express ourselves through affordable and convenient therapy. We aren't breaking the bank or wasting gas in the process, because you can have your therapy sessions in the comfort of your own home, using your phone or computer via phone call, video chat, or messaging, however you feel most comfortable communicating. BetterHelp usually matches you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful and unbiased advice within just 48 hours. You can sign up for your therapeutic journey now by using my link provided in the description box below for a special discount, betterhelp.com/BlaqueWitchYaya. You'll answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you with a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. Again, that's betterhelp.com/BlaqueWitchYaya. And thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. So you guys, this angle may look very familiar because I am finally back making my crystal dry rub while I tell you guys a story. I'm not sure why I stopped doing it. I guess I was just trying to change up the angle, and with the new angle I couldn't do it. But we're back crushing up some herbs. So we're going to start with crushing up this sage because it is big and bulky and I need it nice and fine to mix well with the other herbs. So today we are in Brookfield, Connecticut in the 1980s, where a couple by the name of Arnie Johnson and Debbie Glatzel just got the keys to their new rental property. Now for Arn, we're going to call him Arnie because Arn is just so weird to say. So we're going to say Arnie. But the home wasn't move-in ready. They had a lot of cleaning and fixing certain things before they could call this place a home. So they needed more help, of course. So Debbie had her younger brother come along to be an extra set of hands, which is good in the sense that the house is being cleaned. I'm always promoting doing a physical and spiritual cleanse of your home, of any new place you're about to move in, a storefront you're about to have, because you don't know the energy that was there before you or the bacteria that was there before you. So you want to get rid of demons and bacteria, okay? To make sure the place is nice and reset and you're not moving into old stagnant energy. So in this home, there was a physical item that was left behind by one of the previous tenants, which was a water bed. And at first I was like, who leaves a water bed behind, or who still has a water bed? But we got to remember, this was in the 80s. So Debbie's younger brother David, he's the one that found the water bed in the master bedroom. But that wasn't the only thing he found. He noticed there was a lot of odd things going on. One being a figure of an old man with black eyes and a thin face that actually spoke to him and told him to beware. So he ran to tell his big sister Debbie and her fiance Arnie. They just chucked it up to David being a kid. He was 11 at the time, and they just thought this was him trying to create an excuse of why he didn't want to clean the master bedroom, since this was the biggest bedroom, trying to take the easy way out, right? But remember, I told you guys that kids are more prone prone to seeing spirits because their soul is still innocent. They haven't been tainted by the world yet. They haven't had a bunch of people say, oh, this isn't real, that's not real, that's not possible. So they're more open to seeing things that may not be real or possible to people who are a tad bit older. So sometimes spirits, or in this case demons, will show themselves to kids more often than adults. So after the first day of cleaning, they went to stay at Debbie's mother's house, which they'll stay here the entire time that they are cleaning out the rental property, right? So they planned on. So since David was helping clean the house, he was staying there as well. And the same old man that he saw before at the rental property made an appearance at Debbie's mother's house. I also want to mention, along with kids being able to see spirits easier than adults, the spirits are more able to latch onto them as well because they're young, they're innocent, they're not as protected as an adult may be. That's why it's important for the parent, not telling you what to do with your kids because I don't have any, so who am I to say anything? But you may want to protect them spiritually as well. As like whatever you do to protect yourself, sprinkle that on your kids too. And then the next morning, the whole family, they heard weird noises coming from the attic. So they're asking each other, did you hear that noise coming from the attic? Did you hear this? Did you hear that? But it was David who figured he knew where the noises was coming from because that same old man that he saw earlier made another appearance. Even though his physical appearance was a bit different, his face looked as if it's been burnt. His feet were now those of deer. So he had hooved these kind of feet. So the old man is going to make a few appearances throughout the story, so much so that through documentation he has been named the Beast. So as I tell this story, it may sound very familiar because you probably watched a movie that's based off this story. So eventually Debbie seen this beast as well. So his sister seen the beast and she described him as a man with black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hooves. So that same night when everyone's trying to figure out what was the noise coming from the attic, David told his family that he saw an animal scratching at a door. So that's probably where the noise is coming from, but only for the next day, which is supposed to be the big day 2 of cleaning the rental property. When they arrived, they seen a bunch of scratch marks on every door of the rental home. And they just weren't regular scratch marks from like moving stuff around. They looked like an animal did it. So of course this scared everyone because David just said that he saw this happening, and now there's tangible evidence of animals actually scratching at the door. So for this next part, I'm actually surprised and proud of Debbie and Arnie because they decided not to move into the home. They saw this weird stuff going on. They believed the little brother. He saw ghosts. He saw stuff happening. They had tangible proof that it happened. So they decided not to move. And I feel like in many cases and in many movies, the people are like, oh no, we're just going to tough it out. And it's like, leave. They have all these signs to leave and they don't leave. So Debbie and Arnie actually left. Even though they spent a lot of money to secure the home, they were scared. So they decided to leave. And this story doesn't have a good ending. So could you imagine if they actually moved into the home, what would have happened? So even though they decided not to move into the home, David still had to deal with the visits from the beast. It went from just seeing or hearing him to being physically attacked. The same scratch marks that were on the door in the rental property that they didn't want to move into was now on his body. And not only would the beast scratch him, the beast would strangle him and threaten to take his soul. Y'all, to top it all off, to make everything even more creepy, David, 11-year-old David, would recite different verses from the Bible and different literature by memory, something that an 11-year-old should not have memorized, or sometimes even adults don't have memorized. And just out of curiosity, you guys, if you notice that your child, niece, nephew, favorite cousin, whoever, someone younger than you is experiencing these same things, what's the first thing that you would do? What would be like, okay, I'm the spiritual one, I gotta fix it. What would you do? Let me know down below. For Debbie and Arnie, they decided to take this matter to the church. They went there, they let the preacher, pastor, whoever know what was going on. And from there, a couple by the name of Ed and Lorraine Warren became a part of this whole debacle. So Ed and Lorraine were American paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of hauntings, demontologists, and Lorraine, a clairvoyant and light trance medium, found the New England Society of Psychic Research in 1952. They investigated various high-profile cases. Ed and Lorraine are now a part of this. They have to see what's going on. And for Lorraine, she said her initial visit, she noticed right off the bat that David was acting more like a creature than a child. And she couldn't help but feel the tension in the home. And she noticed this dark shadow that continuously followed David wherever he would go. When he would sit down, the shadow sitting right next to him. When he would walk, the shadow would start moving down the hall along with him. So with these observations, Lorraine suggested a immediate but minor exorcism. So the exorcism needed to be immediate, but Lorraine wanted to make sure that these weren't psychological issues that David was experiencing, and to make sure that there was some type of paranormal activity going on. And immediately, right off the bat, through questioning him and observing his behavior, she knew that this was something far beyond earthly that he was dealing with. So she wanted this exorcism to be immediate because she didn't want the family to have to wait for the church to do an exorcism, because I'm not sure what exactly has to go on, but there's some type of chain of command they have to follow. They have to investigate first, they have to see what's going on, they have to talk to the child one-on-one, and sometimes it can take days. They could be booked up, everybody got a demon, they got a whole schedule that's just like months out. So she wanted to do something minor in the meantime, which was good because David was getting worse and worse by the day. He would convulse randomly throughout the day, so a family member had to stay with him at all times to make sure that these attacks didn't turn too harmful or deadly. So David always had to have a family member around him, but it became a daunting task. Imagine you always have to keep an eye on an 11-year-old kid that's usually a little bit self-sufficient and functional on their own, but they just had to sit there and witness their family member being attacked by a demon, not knowing what to do. So the day has come for David to get his exorcism. So let's set the scene. Of course, there's David, his mother, his sister Debbie, and her fiance Arnie, along with several priests and Ed and Lorraine, who are investigating this entire thing. Now, over the next few days while this exorcism is being performed, and Lorraine was taking notes. She was on her job trying to figure out what was going on. So she observed that David would sometimes levitate during the exorcism while prayer was going on. He even stopped breathing a few times. And on top of all this, David made some concerning predictions. We're saying it's David, but obviously we know it's the demon who's speaking through him. In one of his predictions, he stated that there will be a murder in the hands of someone in the group. So with this information, Lorraine immediately wanted to warn the police. Of course, they're going to be like, okay, a demon said that a murder was going to take place. Okay, we'll keep a lookout. So even with Lorraine taking her notes and being very observant throughout this entire exorcism, it was not easy for everyone to watch, of course, because they experienced him going through all of this initially. Now they're experiencing it 10 times worse because they're trying to take the demon out. And one person that just took watching this very hard was Arnie. He couldn't stand to see a kid go through all of that. He's so young, he didn't even do anything yet, he doesn't deserve this. So this really made Arnie feel uncomfortable that David was going through this. So he felt so uncomfortable that in the middle of the exorcism, Arnie told the demon, yes, he started talking to the demon. He told the demon, leave him alone and possess me. So of course everyone is like, Arnie, we are trying to send this demon back to where he came from, and you up here just requesting for him to possess you? Like, well, what are you doing? Now mind you, before this exorcism even started, Lorraine and Warren told everyone in the room not to communicate with the demon. Don't make any sudden movements. If you see it, just sit still. And here he go talk about some possess me, like he's gonna, I don't know what he thought. So over the next few days, Arnie began to experience a few things that he felt like he did not have control of. One being, one day while he was out running errands, the engine began to race. He lost control of the car. He ended up hitting a tree. But I guess this experience scared him so much that he decided, let me go back to the rental property to face the demon one-on-one. So I guess his reasoning kind of made sense, because he wanted to see, okay, so let's go back to the original scene of the crime, and he's heard that there was some type of portal there that made it easy for the demon to go from the physical world to whatever demonic world he came from. So he thought, maybe if I close the portal, maybe if I confront the portal, it'll stop this demon from attacking people. And Arnie got exactly what he wanted. Well, maybe not wanted, but expected, because when he went back to the rental property, he seen the demon firsthand. He seen the beast firsthand, made eye contact, and saw him. And that's when it's documented that he officially became possessed by the demon. Because remember, David saw this same beast before, eye contact, face to face, and that's when he became possessed. So we know the family did not move into the original rental property, but they still ended up moving to an apartment that was owned by Alone. And Alone was their, of course, new landlord, but he was also Debbie's boss as well. But this move was not smooth, because now Arnie is experiencing the same things, but worse, that David was experiencing initially. First time they tried to move, David got possessed. Now the second time they moving, Arnie is possessed. So the beast was just wearing Arnie out, so much so that he called in from work one day, specifically February 16th, and he ended up spending the day with his fiance Debbie at her job. And along with him was his 2 younger sisters and cousin. So for lunch, everybody who was just there chilling at Debbie's job, I guess, decided to go to a restaurant to eat. But they noticed that the boss, Alone, and the landlord was drinking a little bit too much. Debbie decided, okay, let me get the kids away from this situation because he's drinking too much. He's acting a little So they all just decided to go back to work, go their separate ways. And then later on, the girls got hungry again. So Debbie decided to take the girls to get a pizza. She felt a little weird leaving her fiance and her boss alone. She didn't know why, because they don't have any type of history to have beef. But she just felt a little uneasy. She felt like there was some tension between them. It could have been because Alone was drinking too much, but she just didn't want to leave them alone for too long. So she got the pizza and she headed back to work. So once they returned, Alone asked everybody to come up to his apartment, which was located right above the workplace. It was a dog kennel where Debbie works. So I guess that's why everybody was so casual and just able to hang out there. It was, a casual workplace. So when everyone came up to the apartment, Alone started to act a little even more weird, and Debbie noticed that he was getting a little bit aggressive. So she knew that she had to separate herself again, because she felt like, okay, this was the tension that I was feeling before. So she asked the girls to go downstairs, but Alone ended up grabbing one of the girls, grabbing Arnie's younger cousin. Now Debbie was able to get him to let go, but Arnie was already on his way upstairs after he heard the commotion, and he was ready to defend his cousin. But it wasn't the type of defense like, you touched my little cousin, so now I'm about to check you type of anger. But he began growling and snarling at Alone like an animal. The same animal behavior that David was having before. The sisters, the cousins, so everyone's trying to hold him back because they know he's possessed by a demon, but nothing worked. He pulled out his pocket knife and began trying to stab Alone with it, which he was successful with. Alone was stabbed about 5 times in the chest and stomach area, which was then concluded as his cause of death. After the accident, Arnie just walked off to the forest, not because he was shocked at what he did, but it was almost like he didn't remember, like, okay, I'm about to take a walk. And he just carried on into the forest. And you guys, just keep in mind that this murder was the first documented murder in Brookfield, Connecticut. So of course it caused chaos in the community because they're not used to this type of stuff happening. So eventually Arnie was detained by cops, and Lorraine came to the police station to let them know, like, hey, I know a murder just happened, but I do have to let you know, he's possessed by demons. So it wasn't him, like, he couldn't help it, he's possessed by demons. Which you would think the cops would be like, okay, right, possessed by a demon. But like I said before, this was the first documented murder in the entire area, so they knew it had to be some type of reason behind it, because stuff like this just doesn't happen. So this, it wasn't him, the devil made him do it, he's possessed by demons, was actually used in court by Arnie's lawyer, Martin Manila, making not only this the first documented murder in Brookfield, Connecticut, but the first time ever in U.S. history where demonic possession was used as a defense, which made this case known as the Demon Murder Trial, with their main defense being, the devil made me do it. So the prosecution focused on the physical evidence and eyewitness testimonies, inserting that John's actions were those of a jealous, angry man, basically saying he's a jealous spouse, that's why he attacked Alone, because they were getting a little too close. They argued that Arnie had a clear motive and that the murder was premeditated. So the judge ruled that the defense of demonic possession was not admissible in the court due to the lack of scientific evidence, which that happens a lot nowadays. It's like, we can't prove it scientifically, so how do we know? So this forced the defense to pivot and rely on traditional self-defense argument, claiming that Arnie acted in a moment of blind rage during a heated argument with Alone, because he just grabbed his little cousin, so he was trying to defend the defenseless. So let's fast forward to the verdict. On November 24th, 1981, Arnie was convicted of first-degree manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, but was released after just serving about 5 years for good behavior. And upon his release, Debbie and Arnie ended up getting married, and the case ended up receiving extensive media coverage, fueling public fascination with the supernatural and furthering the Warrens' popularity. Now this case may sound familiar because you probably watched the 2021 film The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is based off the event. It dramatizes it just a little bit, but it still depicts what happened to this family. This story made me think about how many crimes crimes have happened where the person literally was just not themselves, but their physical form is facing the consequences for it. Because I'm sure the demon not going to sit around and serve the time of something that they made the human do. But I'm just thinking, like, anytime I hear certain crimes that occurred and it just seems so heartless and cruel to the point where I'm like, that's a demon. Because what human, like the worst human in the world, I feel like had some type of just, I don't know, common courtesy for human life, where the way the murders take place, the just how gruesome it is. Sometimes I'm thinking like that's a demon. And especially sometimes when you see their mug shots and they just seem out of it, you can tell like, okay, that's not, I mean, still serve time, but I feel like something else happened. But you guys let me know, is there any case that you guys heard of where you immediately thought like, okay, it has to be some type of demon that's in the form of a human? Because stuff like this does not happen. Let me know down below, and we could probably do a series where we go over these cases to feel like, is this demonic or just a horrible human? I don't know, but let me know down below. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe of the soul. Until next time, you guys, I shade.